Hey everyone, it's Erin again. This time we're going to take the Christmas tree change up box die, add some felt and some stitching dies, and make these amazing felt Christmas tree ornaments. It's super easy and just adds to the versatility of this whole Christmas tree change up collection. So let's go ahead and get started on that. The first thing you're going to want to do is to take your Christmas tree change up box die and some felt. Here's a full roll, and I'm going to show you how to cut this to get the maximum number of Christmas tree ornaments from a roll of felt. If you don't do it this way, you'll get 1.5. This way, I think you'll get between 3 and 4. I haven't measured it exactly, but that's better than 1.5. So you're going to actually thread it through your die cut machine all the way to the end, just like so. And this box die is going to go diagonal. Go as close to the edge on each side as you possibly can. We're trying to maximize your felt. We're trying to use every last bit we possibly can. And just run that through. Remember, I never cut anything, so that long line of felt from the roll is still attached. And this is why it's important that it is. We're going to thread it through again. And you're going to see where I made that first cut. I'm going to take the box die again after I trim off this little edge. That little edge you're not going to do anything with. Take the box die again. You're going to lay it out on the felt, out on the diagonal, but as close to the first cut as possible. And this way you're going to maximize the use of your felt. Get every penny out of it you possibly can. Create multiple Christmas tree ornaments by cutting it this way. And we're going to run it through again because you need 2 of these box die cuts to make a 4-sided felt ornament. Going to put the felt away. And now this is just the edges of the box die, and if this was paper we could make a paper box. But we're stitching this, so we're going to get the Christmas tree change up stitching dies out, and we're going to add stitching holes. It's on an edger style backer, and you're going to place it on your felt like so. This long part is going to go up against that square edge. The slot at the top of the tree you're not going to cover up. And the little corners that go in, they should meet the metal edger pretty darn close, if not exactly. You want to get it centered. You just take your time here, line it up. If you have to practice on a piece of paper first, paper is cheaper than felt. But when you run it through felt, now we have stitching holes, and it works great. Okay, now you're going to take this and do the opposite side, and that long tail is going to help form a square on the bottom of this ornament. It's a square stitching motif, I guess you can call it. Again, take your time, line it up, practice on paper. You're going to get the hang of it really quickly. And I'll be honest with you, if you don't get the corners of that box down there at the bottom exactly so, if it's a little bit off, it actually will work just fine. But do your best. There's a little bit of wiggle room. I've learned this. I didn't think there was going to be, but there definitely is. Okay, included in the stitching collection are 2 stitching motifs for the sides of the tree ornament. This is the most ornate one. Both are on backers that fit within that stitched rectangle on the Christmas tree part of your ornament. And you just run it through. Yes, there's a lot of passes through the die cut machine with your felt, but in doing this way, A, we're keeping costs down, and B, we're maximizing the versatility. It's just sacrifices you make. All right, so you're going to do this on both sides. If you want the design on both sides of this piece, so it would be the back and the front of an ornament. And then the other felt cut would be the sides. Now on this ornament that I'm making, I'm only putting this ornate design on the back and the front, and the sides are going to have various felt buttons I've cut with bitty button stackers and button stackers. Okay, there's the one side. Your other cut of felt does need to have the stitching holes all the way around it, but whatever detail goes in the middle is up to you. Okay, this is the very ornate version. This is like the stitching chart, and I'm going to make sure this is totally available to you. Right now, I do want to show you one little thing that is important I show you on camera, and that's these little felt circles. They're included in the stitching dies. And these two down here at the bottom, which have only one hole, I'm going to show you how to do that because it's a little tricky. You're going to go up through the bead, the felt circle, and wrap the thread around and go back down the same hole. Now go to the opposite side and do the same thing. They're a little too flappy with just one stitch, but you can't go in and out of the same hole without ripping the whole thing off, so that's why you're going to the opposite side. With your stitching guide that I'm going to be providing for this on my blog, you'll be able to do this motif very easily, including all the tiny little details that are included in the stitching dies. Okay, you go back to the other one, go up through the back, around that little felt circle, and then back down the center of both the circle and the ornament base. And do it on the other side. So now those two felt circles are stitched in with 2 stitches, and they're very secure and decorative. And that solves that problem. But you can also use sequins and beads, or even brads. Brads work great. It's like a little metal stud. So you have options here instead of using these felt details. And I will discuss that all on the blog. Okay, we have at this point stitched in whatever decorative details we want on the surface of these 2 felt cuts of the Christmas box die. You're going to form an X with them and flip them over. You see my very messy backs, and you can go straight down, and we're going to sew the bottom together in a square. For newbies, I like to do a running stitch. You go down 1 hole, up hole 2, down hole 3, up hole 4, and you continue till you get to the very beginning. In this case, we're going counterclockwise all the way around to where we start, which I have done off camera. And now you reverse and go clockwise, filling in that running stitch for a solid stitched line. And this time you go all the way back to the very beginning and tie it off. And you will have a solid stitch square, which makes the base of your ornament. Or if you guys are using these as a paper box, that's the bottom of your paper box, because this one goes back and forth. There we go. You can see how that's a solid line now. I've gotten all the way back to the beginning. I'm going to make sure that line is solid on both sides. There's no gaps or skipped stitches. And when I get to that point where both sides are completely finished, I tie it off and snip the threads. Okay, I'm going to put up a photo here to remind you what these look like when they're finished, because the next step I kind of filmed off center, a little out of the screenshot, and it's a little difficult to see, and by the time I realized it, it would have been hours of work to fix it. I would have had to redo this whole thing. So what we're going to do is I'm going to remind you with the picture here. We're going to sew together the edges to form a box. So you fold this up into a pyramid shape, and each side gets stitched together. Another thing I want to mention, there is 1 hole at the very apex of the Christmas tree box on each side. You do not stitch that now. You do the one down from that. That top hole is for the string to hang it and to keep it closed. So what you're going to do now is go place your needle between the 2 layers of felt up through that first hole of the straightaway, not the hole at the apex of the triangle. And we're going to make a running stitch all the way down to the bottom and then back up. and tie it off. So each one of these sides in the pyramid of this Christmas tree box is sewn individually. No big deal. It actually goes really quick. I think this is the quickest part. And if you notice, that line does not connect to the square on the bottom. So you go all the way down and turn around. Do not connect with the stitch square. So those are the two big tips for you. All right, I'm down at the bottom. I'm going to go back up. And I'm filling in that running stitch for one solid continuous stitch line until I get to the very beginning where I started. And at that point, I am just going to place my needle through one layer of felt, and both my tails now are hanging out between the two layers of felt. I'm going to tie those off, and the knot is going to get slipped between the two layers, hiding the knot, making your project look super professional. They're going to think you're a genius sewer by the time you hand these out at Christmas time. They're going to think you're brilliant. Go with it. I won't tell. Okay, there's one side. Go ahead and stitch up the other two sides, leaving one side open, like I have done here. This is when you fill it with polyfill. Polyfill is like, we call it stuffed animal guts at my house. It's a squishy, polyester-y material that gives shape and heft and plushness to sewn objects. Once you're satisfied that it's stuffed to your likeness, personal preference here, we're going to sew up that final side just like we did the first, second, and third. Okay, now it's time to show you what to do with those holes at the apex of each of the triangles. We're going to add a string loop for hanging on a Christmas tree. There should be one on each side because we didn't stitch those. You go in through the middle. You leave a little bit of a tail because that's what we're going to tie this off with. You go directly across. Now there are slots on the top of these felt cuts. That's more of a box die feature, but they are advantageous here because they help us hide our string. Once you go through that opposite side, you turn it 45 degrees and go through another one. So now we have 3, which we've placed our needle through. Make a loop, don't pull it tight. Go through that last side on the opposite side of the ornament with your needle. Now your thread is up through the middle. We're going to tie it off, double knot, and then cut. And we are almost done. There is just one more finishing touch with that loop we've made, which is what's going to hang this ornament off the Christmas tree. I think it is helpful once we trim these. It just seems a little wide. It seems like it wants to spread open a little bit. If you tie a knot down low with this, just loop it around, it kind of keeps that loop together down there at the bottom, and it looks more like a ornament to me. That's just my personal preference. Okay, if you want to add one last thing, just hot glue a ribbon bow up there at the top. Looks super cute. It's going to look great hanging on your tree. All these are going on my tree. This is my own personal collection. It makes me giddy. All right, thanks for joining me. Please ask me if you have any questions. Come on the forum or my blog. I'd be happy to help you out. And happy Christmas crafting with the Christmas Tree Change Up collection. Bye-bye now.